Cool. Okay, sorry. Well, first of all, congrats on the win. I'm curious just for you guys if you could speak to kind of the scout on UNC and maybe what were some of the specific weaknesses in their defense that you guys were trying to pick apart today.
Yeah, well, they're a super talented team, so we knew it was going to be a dogfight coming in from the start. Obviously, they're 4 and 5. We're probably the most talented on their team, so that was a big, vocal point of us. But I think for us, it was just about bouncing back from the few losses that we had strung along in a row. So it was just a big game for us, not only in terms of our tournament hopes, but just in terms of our confidence as a team. So it's a big win for us.
John, slow start for you for ACC play in the first 4 games, but you've been unlocked these last 2 games against Duke and today against North Carolina. What's been different for you in this homestand here against arguably the 2 best teams we've played so far in ACC play?
I think just staying confident. My teammates and coaches are trusting me. They've been lifting me up every day, even after the stretch of bad games. So got to give the credit to them and just hold my head high and just staying with it. So eventually it'll fall. So.
This is for both of you guys. What were you able to exploit that they do defensively to get so many open looks, whether it was secondary, whether it was kickouts, whether it was swings? What were you guys able to exploit?
Really just staying what we do, running our offense, running it quicker than we usually would do, and just shooting the open shots, not turning down open shots.
When you say you ran it quicker, was there a reason why? Was it something that they did to speed you up, or were you doing it to kind of get them into some bad switches?
Doing it to get them to some bad switches.
Yeah, I think just moving the ball too. Moving the ball for us was and playing fast. Those are 2 goals for us.
Got a bit dicey towards the end of the game, especially because of the press. What was the message in the huddles, in those final 8-ish minutes about trying to, bounce back from the pressure?
Really just executing stuff. I feel like they kind of surprised us with that press, but we eventually looked at it and took care of business.
What were you guys thinking when North Carolina made that big run at the end there?
Just staying composed, not falling under pressure, sticking to what we do.
Just staying together. Just staying together, stay poised. Just control what you can control.
For both of you guys, screen navigation was a big thing throughout the course of the afternoon. What was the biggest thing that you guys were trying to get accomplished, both from the big men eventually rolling to you guys wrapping around?
Offensively, or? You mean for our guards, like whipping over the ball screens? Yeah, that's something that we work on a lot, just making sure we're staying attached to those guys that are coming over screens. And it's not easy to do, so credit to the guards because they got to do it almost every time down. But that just comes with the physicality that we're trying to play with, and the guards did a great job of that.
Defensively, Caleb Wilson got his, but John, you drew that defensive assignment primarily early on with some double-team help. Talk about the defensive strategy against Caleb.
Yeah, he's a really good player. He's going to make a lot of money playing basketball. But I think we wanted to approach it as like a team defense type of thing. And it was kind of the same with last game with Boozer. I know Boozer got off a little bit, and I take that responsibility. That's on me. But I think we did a good job as a team on Wilson. And, my big guys were there to back me up. My guards were there on the, when he would kick it out. So I think we did a good job as a team. Obviously, a guy like him is going to get his, but, we were able to still come out with the win. So that's all that matters.
Last questions?
I also want to say we love Cal basketball. The academics, so we glad to be here.
And the fans. Shout out to the fans for packing our house again. It means a lot.
Good. Thanks, everyone.
Appreciate it.
Thank you for coming out tonight, guys. I guess today, we're not at the night yet, but just really want to thank the Cal community, the students, all the alums. We had a bunch of basketball alums from the program that helped build this program, and the donors and supporters. It was basically a packed house, and we're trying to build something special here at Cal, and it takes everybody. And I can't say enough about the environment. Can't get enough credit to North Carolina. Late in the game, they had us on our heels. They did a great job of making us uncomfortable. And credit them and credit some guys of ours that stepped up and made plays late with no timeouts. So open to questions.
Coach, talk about that first half. That's your highest scoring first half of the season. Obviously shot right out of the gate there. Talk about just that aggressiveness on offense going to get a hot start there.
It was great to see. Everybody knows we put pressure on the rim with attacking the rim with different actions that we have. It was nice to see a few shots drop too tonight early because we can also shoot it. We can do both. And so that was good to see. I was pleased with the ball movement. I think we we finished with 20 assists. We might have had 10 or 12 in the first half.
14 assists on 19 made baskets.
Yeah. Yeah, so that was, you could feel that. You could feel just the unselfishness. You know, Justin Pippen is somebody who, he puts pressure on the rim, he can shoot it, and he has an uncanny vision to just see everything around him in the game as it's happening. But it was everybody making positive contributions to the ball movement.
We just talked to a couple of your guys here a few minutes ago, and they said that moving quickly, moving the ball quickly, they were able to get in some advantageous switches on Carolina. That was sort of the plan going in. Is that what happened, especially during that first half?
We talk a lot about, you know, trying not to hold the ball for too long. You know, and I thought our decision making, you know, you want to make a decision in a half count or less. I thought our guys did a good job of that tonight, and attacking closeouts. And then, you know, as a team, if you are open, don't turn down a good one. You know, Montas, one of our backup centers, he can shoot threes. And we've told him, hey, the game is going to come. I didn't know it was going to be today. Everybody knows Milos can make threes, but nobody really knows Montas can make them. And you know, we told him that time's coming. And it was today, and it was a big shot that he stepped up and made in terms of Montas just knocking down that three.
I was just curious. Caleb Wilson only made, I think, one field goal in the last 16 minutes. Didn't make a field goal in the last 15. Just what do you think was maybe the key for you guys defensively in shutting that down?
Look, well, that's a really good point. And, you know, he was still able to get 17. And so it's no secret, just looking at the film, a big part of our game plan was to try to swarm Caleb because he's such a talent. You know, he's one of the top. You know, in the ACC, we really have probably most of the top freshmen in the conference, above any other conference, above the SEC, above the Big 12. I think most of the top freshmen are in the ACC. And so, you know, a few nights ago, it was Boozer at Duke. Tonight it was Caleb. And so a huge part of our game plan was to try to shut him down. And you know you're not going to shut him down. But hopefully you can try to frustrate him and force someone else to make an uncomfortable play.
Well, what did you see in your scout of Carolina's recent games about how often opponents were getting wide open threes and how they were getting it? And how do you think you got so many wide open threes today?
You know, I would say, you know, I thought North Carolina did a good job scrambling. Most of the threes, many of the threes we took were contested. A couple of them maybe a step late, but most of the threes we took, and I need to go back and look at the film, but there was a guy flying in with a hand up. And so it's you know, look, as a team, everybody goes through a tough moment. You know, it used to be when you came out west. Last year when teams came out west, it was, you know, a little bit different of a road trip. You know, Stanford is a really good team. We feel like we're building something special. And so, you know, I wouldn't characterize it quite like that because I did think that they flew around.
Hey, Coach, obviously 54 points in the first half. Just kind of had your way with Carolina offensively, and then in the second half, only 30 points and 42% from the field. What did you see defensively that was different that Carolina brought in the second half that led to the decrease, I guess, offensive production?
Yeah, Carolina won the second half. I mean, that was clear, and they threw different looks at us. They obviously bothered us with late games, some of their full court stuff, and it shook us for a second. We were out of timeouts. We couldn't stop the action. And so they did an outstanding job of that. You know, Caleb is, I don't know what his wingspan is, but that guy he's like a huge fan, just deflections, you know, blocking shots, changing shots. And so I think when he got up, it really made us uncomfortable. It made us uncomfortable.
For much of the season, you've been, I guess, more of a second half team, especially in some of those games like Kansas State, kind of coming back in the second half. Past two games now, it's been, you know, coming out strong in the first half and then kind of fading away a little bit in the second half. How do you kind of remedy that moving forward?
Yeah, no, it's a fair point. I want to look at the film. We can't get tentative. You know, we can't lose our aggression when we have a lead. I thought that we got a little bit passive. And, you know, North Carolina, I want to come back to your question here in the front because they top locked us. They top locked us in the second half, and they were much more physical. They were much more physical. To your point, the top lock hurt us. It hurt us, but then we were able to open up some of our counters from that.
Yeah, you addressed this a little bit already, but can you talk a little bit about how North Carolina was able to make that run and make it close at the end, and then what you did to survive?
You know, I think with Caleb's length and athleticism up front in that press, I think we were a little bit shell-shocked. Okay, we had a situation where, and let me just say, our assistant coaches are fantastic. The assistant coach in charge of the challenges had a good look, and he's been perfect this year. And he said challenge, we challenged. It was a close call because after the game, people told me that the announcers were saying the ball could have gone our way. And so we lost a timeout there, and then their press caused us to lose another timeout. And so now we're scrambling. We're trying to call everything in verbally and from the board. And Carolina had the momentum. They had the momentum. And they did, again, they won the second half. And they were flying around even more in the second half than the first.
And how were you able to survive?
We were able to survive because our guys stepped up and made plays. Our guys stepped up. Instead of us running away from the ball in the press, we ran to the ball in the press. You know, they forced us into, even after the timeout, they forced us into some additional turnovers with the press. And so that's we have our work cut out to improve on that.
Up front and then end with Thomas.
Yeah, you've spoken a lot just about Caleb and just how, you know, unique he is and some of the challenges he posed. I'm curious just to kind of get your thoughts on him and Henry. What was the scout like on that for you guys? Unique challenges they pose, and how well do you feel like you did as a whole, just kind of with defending the front court there?
Well, I mean, look, Henry had 14 points. Henry had a double-double when it's all said and done, and he had a huge three late in the game, wide open. And so that's not good enough from us. And when it's all said and done, you know, Caleb had 17, had 4 assists, had 4 steals. And so, yeah, I mean, we're going to key in on – you can't just key in on any one or two guys. You have to know the strengths and weaknesses of an entire roster. And we did well enough of that tonight to win the game, but this game could have gone either way. As you guys were here, you saw that. I'm just incredibly proud of our team. You saw Lee Dort, you know, 7 points, 12 rebounds. I thought Lee Dort had a absolute snatch of a rebound late in the game where he just rose up, you know, well above the rim and took a key rebound. You know, Camden shot 50% from 3. Justin was perfect from the free throw line. And so we had a lot of guys really step up and make plays.
Mark, you talked about what Milos and Montas have been kind of doing from the perimeter as of late. Are you looking to see more of that going forward, seeing that it has been in their arsenal from their prior stops and seeing it, you know, maybe on a higher volume going forward?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, Milos shot over 30% at his previous school, Loyola, Maryland. Milos knocks down threes in practice. Now what held Milos back a little bit is he had a slight injury over the summer that caused him to miss 6 to 8 weeks. It just was one that took time. And so, you know, it's always a process to regain a rhythm. But he's playing in rhythm. And yeah, I look for him to take more of those open ones. Montas, we've been saying it since day one. If you're open, you shoot it. Montas can shoot. Thank you so much, guys. Thank you.